Our next speaker goes back. He's an associate professor of medicine at Duke University, board certified in obesity and internal medicine, and a pioneering researcher and best-selling author whose work in ketogenic diets has transformed obesity medicine. Please welcome Dr. Eric Westman.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Today I'm debuting a new concept, and I want your feedback. I hear this in my practice at Duke. I've been at Duke now since 1990, but really getting into obesity medicine since the year 2000, keto medicine more specifically. And I hear this comment quite frequently. But keto goes against everything I've been taught. Anybody go along with this? Yeah, just about everyone. My conflict I forgot to put on there is I created a small company to teach people who can't make it to my office, and that's called Adapt Your Life Academy, adaptyourlifeacademy.com. So it got me thinking because over the last, 25 years, how do I put all of what I've learned in one slide? Well, if you go out and get Ketogenic, the Science of Therapeutic Carbohydrate Restriction in Human Health, which came out in 2023, you're going to learn just about all the science that I know and more. And it's an amazing textbook. I really have to thank Professor Noakes and the Nutrition Network for doing the heavy lifting on this textbook. But then you go to lectures on what do humans eat evolutionarily, and you've heard about hunter-gatherer and paleo and primal. And when you get into the medical world, Banting wrote a book. It wasn't Banting and Best of insulin history of medicine, but Banting wrote a book, Letter on Corpulence, which was a low-carb diet in the 1860s. And then Osler and Allen published papers and were using a low-carb keto diet to treat diabetes 100 years ago. And doctors were using low-carb diets right up until about the time I was born, 1960. And probably your lived experience is that it's bad. But what happened in our lifetime, the sugars and starches, the low-fat diet, junk food was what we called it when I was a kid, now ultra-processed food. You might have heard of the Pritikin and Ornish approaches, which were legitimate ultra-low-fat diets. You may have heard of Dr. Atkins and Atkins diet and Protein Power in South Beach, and all of those morphed into, in my clinical experience and research lifetime, into something called LCHF. You'll see documentary films on this, people winning record time, the Sami Inkinen and his wife who go in a rowboat and row from San Francisco to Hawaii and break the world's record by 15 days. That's serial killers too. C-E-R-E-A-L, not S-E-R-I-A-L. And what went against my training was something called metabolic syndrome. It's called insulin resistance. In the talks you've heard so far, it's focusing on triglyceride and HDL, the abdominal circumference, the blood sugar, and the blood pressure elevation. So it's not just the blood levels of things, but it takes away the old paradigm, total and LDL, that I was taught, to triglyceride and HDL in the blood. And I talk about this and teach people in my classes and in my clinic. If you step back, something got messed up because I'm just teaching the hunter-gatherer diet. I'm just teaching paleo, primal, Banting. So you have to step back and realize that what we grew up with was bizarre. Not normal. It's normal for us. People come in, but it's normal. I've always had Fruit Loops and Captain Crunch, and it's normal to have Halloween candy like this and barter with your. I stole money from my mother's wallet to buy candy. Did anyone else do that? Oh, okay, thank you. I felt so alone. But so, why does it seem so wrong then to teach something that's so right? Which gets me to, how are we taught? Families, Frosted Flakes boxes, Tony the Tiger, the Muppets. Back in the day, the Atkins Foundation paid PBS to change what the Cookie Monster said. From, cookie to every now and again treat. Did you know it was a blip? I don't think it sustained because they stopped paying them, right? My high school, what did I learn? I not much in nutrition, and the food guy, well, Dr. Oz taught everyone, and you have to have a poop every day and buy my probiotics, so you don't have to, but. And then now food guides and Mediterranean diets, the government guidelines and all this, which were really companies lobbying the government to promote the foods America makes. And that was dramatized in a comedy sketch by a brilliant comedian. Comedians often just see reality and basically say, we don't promote palm oil because we're not a tropical country. We don't have palm oil. Wow. And then now my patients come in watching my 600-pound life, Naked and Afraid. Has anyone watched Naked and Afraid? This reality show where people go out into the middle of nowhere by choice, and like dramatized in this picture, they lose a pound a day, minimum. It's a pound or two per day. So you can learn about it. That now it's not a healthy way to do it. I'm not telling you to do the Naked and Afraid diet. But now in my practice, more and more people are going from Dr. Oz network TV, obviously not on anymore, but they're going to YouTube. And so how many of you are consuming YouTube information? And how many of you, do you still have cable TV? Yeah, I think 25% is the latest. And then the thing that just stuck in you are what you eat. No, you're not. Are you a banana? Oh, well, you might not eat bananas now. But so in my clinic, I'll say, but what do you eat? And I ask people to write out everything they eat. And then I say, has any other doctor ever asked you to write out everything you eat for a day? And they go, well, dietitians have. No, has a doctor ever asked you? I said, well, no. And I said, yeah. So I talk about food. And you're not what you eat. You don't look green and you've had broccoli. Right? So that's not right to say things like that. So it occurred to me as I was kind of looking for things to talk about, and I do promote other people's YouTube information, and went through, Keto Connect is this cute couple who years ago I met at Keto, Colorado somewhere, and they have a keto baby, and they've been teaching people keto now for a while. So I wonder, here's a recipe for easy keto meatloaf. And so you have these ingredients, ground beef, and there's a substitution. You don't use breadcrumbs, you use pork rinds. If you don't know what pork rinds are, come to North Carolina. They're all over the place. Chicharrones, meat skins, chicharron. And then you put it in the oven and you bake it. So baking something gives the enzymatic change to, it's almost miraculous, isn't it? To see these ingredients change into things. So I thought, well, why don't we separate out in our teaching for people of what to eat? What are the ingredients for a human? And why do we need fuel? Why do we need the heat? So every recipe people make, it's common knowledge that you would bake something to make, you might not know that it's the chemical reactions and all that that's kind of like magic, but so Here's the easy human recipe. The prep time on average is about 8 minutes. That's what they say, I don't know. Incubation time, about 9 months. Cook time, well, 18 years or more. But what are the ingredients of a 70-kilogram human being? And I ask patients who come to my office, I ask doctors who come to my office, I put you on the spot here. What are we made of? Actually, we're made of water, protein, and fat. Where's the banana? We're not made of carbs, and this is a revelation to most people. Because what are you supposed to eat? Fruits and vegetables and carbs. No. That's not what we're made of. That's not the ingredients of the meatloaf. Carbs are the energy source. So you add these ingredients, and over time, the human grows. And the carbs, sugars and starches, or fat are used to fuel the body. So think of it this way, then we eat to create and replenish the body composition, and we eat to fuel the body, just like the meatloaf recipe. You got these ingredients, the ground beef and the pork rinds and the carnivore or whatever you eat. It could be lentils. And you can fuel the body on carbs. You can fuel the body on fat. Let's take away the judgment. And now, you don't have to put it in an oven. How many of you have air fryers? Crock pots. So it doesn't matter how you cook it. So it doesn't matter how you cook the human, metaphorically. You just want some fuel source. So here's the pie chart that actually I had to create myself. This should be on every Captain Crunch box, at least in the teaching, that a lean human, 70 kilograms, is made mainly of water, protein, and fat. For how many of you is this kind of new? Just be honest. Yeah, we don't have this discourse. We don't teach this, and we have to. We have to start teaching what we're made of. In fact, going back to my middle school age daughter's class, they asked me to come in and be a doctor and do something interesting, and so I did. So if you can imagine, I'm with these 8th graders, and I think, well, I'm getting into this keto research. Maybe I'll come up with a mock scenario that there's been a terrible disaster in the research lab, and all vegetable matter will be dead in 1 year. There's this virus, and it's going to be all over. So I have 40 teenagers, kind of listening to me, kind of not. And I say, so I'm the expert. You can ask me any questions about what we're going to do. Is this a crisis? And so the questions come in. Well, do we need vegetables? And I say, well, we looked at the Institute of Medicine report, and actually there's no essential carbohydrate. You don't need to eat vegetables if you get your nutrition from something else. So we settled that, and the discussion went on, and then there was this boy I'll never forget. He kind of said, Dr. Westman, yes, Dr. Westman. I was Laura's dad, really, right, to them. Dr. Westman, we should eat other people. Imagine it was brilliant. He thought out of the box. And at the time, there were these 2 books that I'll again never forget, Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, and one on cannibalism, which, you got into the idea that there are some societies that needed to survive. And, and we hear about disasters and all this. But so the brilliance, he said, other people have everything we need. Wow. Now, I need your help, and I think there need to be focus groups on how to message this in a little different way. I think I finally said, now don't go home and tell your parents we talked about cannibalism, please. So the purpose of food, water, protein, and fat, is to sustain what we are, replenish the body composition. The fuel for the enzymes, the growth, could be carbs, sugars or fats, or it could be fat. This is not radical. And I think if we teach based on a recipe of what we are and then how we get the energy, separate that out. I teach this now this way in my clinic. And what happens is some people, the professors and all that are like, well, oh God, I got plenty of fat on my body. I don't need to eat carbs. I have fuel. Other people are a little slower on the uptake. But the instructions for a human could be eat protein and fat to replace the body composition and eat carbohydrates and or fat as your fuel. It's your choice. And now that's for a lean person. Understanding, yes, do you get all the human essential nutrients when you just eat proteins and fats in an animal source diet? Yes, you do. And that was the first thing I had to establish for myself with that first do no harm, primum non nocere kind of idea that scientists and doctors have. So don't worry, you're getting all the essential nutrients you need. But so for general nutrition, how about a clap of hands? What do you think of eat what you're made of? Eat what you are. Now, that one, I'm afraid, these have to be like contextual based on the age of the person. Some of them might think that's a zombie film and you actually eat a finger, right? Literally. So eat what you are what you keep from what you eat. Yeah, so that's Jeff Volek's idea. Jeff and Steve, my colleagues, I've never really worked with them, wrote a book with them, and they're the principles behind Virta Health, which is fantastic. But no, I think you are what you keep from you. It was written by PhDs. You are what you keep from. Now, it didn't work well in the clinic, so I've clinic tested some of these. Protein comes first. Prioritize protein. Oh, I think I see a winner. You can use sugar and starch and fat for energy. Yeah, and that's such a great one. So now, welcome to my clinic. You come in, the average BMI in my clinic is about 33 kilograms per meter squared. So this fellow has 350 pounds, 170 kilograms. And this is what his body composition looks like. Yellow is mainly fat. So now we have to have a strategy of teaching people what works across all conditions. When I went to the USDA Food Pyramid Office as part of the Obesity Medicine Association, I met Susan Davis, who was one of the principals behind the food that shape that I hope no one will remember, the pyramid. And so we went in and said, but Ms. Davis, I forget if she was PhD, Dr. Davis, people aren't healthy. So to have a healthy guideline for healthy Americans, that's what she said, well, this is for healthy Americans. We went in on behalf of the Obesity Medicine Association and said, but people aren't healthy. You can't tell everyone to eat healthy when they're not healthy. That was news to them. Again, I think the guideline is just promoting foods America makes, basically by the lobbying of the companies, but that's a hypothesis. But so if someone comes in and they actually have mostly fat on their body, that's just fuel. It's just energy. So the idea in an obesity medicine clinic is that we try to get people to burn their own body fat. It could be by pills, it could be by diets, it could be by shots. The weight loss surgeons down the street, well, they need a hospital, an operating room and hospital beds because sometimes it doesn't go so well. And yet they're dealing with people with plenty of energy on their body. It's just people aren't drawing it down, not accessing it. So you have to start early on to teach people sayings to prevent and to treat obesity. So for weight loss and or obesity. So consistent with what you've learned so far, adding on now, eat carbohydrates and or fat as fuel. It's your choice. However, it's the sugars and starches, the carbs, that are the fattening foods. Anyone like that one? It's kind of long. Bullet number 2. Since we don't store sugar and starch, right? I just showed you we're protein, we're fat, and we're water, regardless of whether you're heavy or you're lean. Since we don't store sugar and starch, extra sugar and starch gets turned into fat and stored as fat. And this is something nobody knows. Nobody's taught this. Did you know sugar turns to fat? Just say no. Yeah, just say no. It's okay. To burn fat weight, just don't eat carbs. That's it. Okay. To burn fat weight, just don't eat carbs. You have plenty of stored fat right there. Okay, I only pull that off in the clinic with someone who I've established rapport with, and I'll point at my own body fat and say, we got plenty of fat right here. Remember the Naked and Afraid program? Oh yeah, they lose a pound or 2 per day. How do they stay alive? And because they're burning their own body fat. They don't eat anything. They don't sleep. The bug bites or the rain, cold rain is so harsh. They're under lots of stress. Stress doesn't cause weight gain, for heaven's sake. It's the food. Okay. To lose weight, just don't eat carbs. It's so simple. That's my favorite, but my tagline is Keto Made Simple, because I'm teaching people from all backgrounds, high school educated, college educated. More sayings about weight loss. The body can burn carbs or fat, but it does not store carbs, it stores fat. So you have to burn through all the carbs that you eat before your body will burn its own fat. And I've started to use the cabinet in my office as the fat store. Here's your body composition. I have people step on a scale, and here's your 100 pounds of fat you have on your body, and the eyes are going like this. And imagine that it's up here in this cupboard, and it's all locked up. So you have to burn through all of those carbs before your body's going to start burning its own fat. Why would it give it up? Bullet number 2. Carb burning turns off fat burning. Extra carbs are changed into fat. It's kind of complicated there, right? Burning fat is like the accelerator on the car. Eating or drinking carbs is like stepping on the brake. It stops the fat burning. Yeah, so salt of the earth, 8th grade education, truck driver comes in, I use that one. And I say, what happens when you have the brake on and the accelerator on at the same time? He says, nothing moves. So you have to match the teaching, but we have to teach that we're made of protein and fat, I believe. Eating or drinking carbs is like pouring water on your fat fire. Yeah. I was thinking maybe that would be my video that would go viral if I did it outside and whoosh, and it went on me and I got burned. A good friend actually did that, kind of a demonstration, and it did go viral. So how are we taught? Is it from your families? Sure. And we heard stories of influential people in your life teaching what seems to be proper, even looking back at what people were eating at that time, the 1950s, 40s, 30s, because we've come through an era that's just bizarre with things that really aren't food. Is it high school? Is it Frosted Flakes? What if there was some way to say, you can't say your product is good for diabetes unless you show it doesn't raise your blood sugar, which is what diabetes is, an elevated blood sugar. Whoa. I mean, even Glucerna, which is marketed out there for diabetes, and it does not keep the blood sugar low like this, couldn't say it's great for diabetes. why do we let why do we let diets through without any kind of oversight, but we don't let drugs through? If diet is as important or as potent as drugs, why don't we have any kind of regulation of what they can put on a label? And let's get from cholesterol change, that just kills me. Like, eat more Cheerios, lowers your cholesterol. It's like, come on. We have to get away from the cholesterol messaging to what are we made of? Eat what we're made of. Fuel your body with either fat or sugar. It's your choice. But if you don't want to gain extra fat on your body, limit the carbs, because you notice I didn't use carbs raise the blood glucose and raise the insulin. Nobody in my clinic wants to hear that. You might be fascinated with that, but that's too deep. Just tell them what to do, really. And then in the Mediterranean diet, I just have to editorialize that there really are not great studies on the Mediterranean diet, but if you tell your doctor you're doing the Mediterranean diet, they'll say, oh, that's good, and they'll move on to the next question. Little secret, little pearl there. So I'd like to just also say, though, the easy human recipe, asterisk, you start with an egg, fertilize the egg, feed it water, protein, fat, and an energy source. It could be starches and sugar. I have a brother who he eats more, he just burns it off, kind of like Nick Norwitz. And it's not fair, but that's okay, it's different metabolisms. If you didn't see Nick's video, he basically over-consumed food and his body temperature went up and he didn't gain weight when the rest of us would have. So there's individual variability. And then asterisk, for best results, give it attention and love. For the easy, maybe that's the complicated human being recipe. And, as a kind of final clinical pearl, is that this may be simple, but it's not always easy. Holidays, family comes in, whatever reason, and in the South, basically carbs appear at your door if a family member dies. And so I get that, and when I say just do this and it'll work, it's true. But I'm trying to instill confidence in something that I've been using for 20 years, and the people that I used this list of foods, basically just a list of foods, they used it for 30 years, and basically is going back to the hunter-gatherer thing that, remember, that's really what we're trying to get back to through a lifetime of bizarre food and food-like things. So going back, what would be your best saying for general nutrition? You're telling your kids, eat what you're made of. Anybody? You clap your hands if you think it's good. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. Eat what you are, Johnny. Yeah, okay, not a good one. You are what you keep from what you eat. Yeah, sorry, Jeff. Protein comes first. Prioritize protein. Now, the problem with that in my clinic is that people don't know what protein is. Thus, the beauty of a list of foods where people don't have to learn anything, really, it's just follow the list. Thus, the beauty of the carnivore diet. Just eat meat. That's pretty simple. So as a final word, when you're thinking about what you eat to replace your body composition, and you eat to fuel the body, just like a recipe for meatloaf. Put in the ingredients, and you bake it. Thank you.